and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the final Angle of Pursuit podcast for the 2022 NASCAR season. The champion has been claimed. Of course, it's Joey Logano. The 22 champion is the number 22. Lots to recap, obviously, not only the final race, just overall thoughts on the season. We'll go back to our season-long bets, see if how we did over there, and all that good stuff. Plus, kind of give you guys a idea of what's to come, what we should be doing. And if you are enjoying the show and you've been riding with us all year, thank you for watching. Let us know down in the comments what you'd like to see. We'll have some thoughts, obviously, at the end of what we're going to put together and what we want to do. But if you have stuff you want to see, if you have stuff you think would be interesting, let us know down in those comments, and we'll see what we can cobble together. But before we dive into everything, Brian, how the hell are you?
I'm doing great. It was nice to close the season out on a high note. Unfortunately, it was that guy, Joey Logano.
Nope.
And honestly, like, if it wasn't for the championship, I have a very strong feeling that Ryan Blaney would have finally gotten a freaking win during an actual race.
Yeah. You looked really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible to see how well he drove throughout the entirety of the season, and he didn't even have a shot to win the championship in this new format. Don't get me wrong. I personally, coming from a team sport background and just kind of fairly new to NASCAR, I actually enjoy this format because it really does put an emphasis on you need to be your best when it matters most, as opposed to, oh, let's just compile a shitload of points early on and then just sit on that for the championship. I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely interesting. Obviously, it's a big part of why Christopher Bell was there at the end. He won when it mattered most. And, we'll talk season-long bets, but it was pretty funny to look back at those and see his win total was set at 0.5 for the 2022 season. And obviously, he smashed that. I will be interested to see, as we kind of go into next year, what odds we get for Ryan Blaney, for Christopher Bell, for Ross Chastain. And how the fall off is for Kyle Larson and Martin Truex and Denny Hamlin and some of these other guys. So I am interested to see. Obviously, we talked about it. The 22 won the race. It never felt like anyone else was going to win that whole time. Like, I felt like there was points where he wouldn't be in first place. But like literally every time, whether it was a pit, whether it was just randomness, end of the stage, he would right back to the front of the pack. He was obviously the best car. When he won the title in 18, he won the Vegas race, and was able to kind of cobble it all together and be like, oh, okay, well, now I can just put all my focus onto Vegas. I also think it's interesting, since we've gone to this format, that there's been 3 champions. All 3 have qualified on the pole and won the race in the championship race. Also on this weekend, the Truck Series, Xfinity, and NASCAR, the Cup Series, all 3 drivers who qualified on the pole won their race and won the championship.
I think it really goes to show you how important pit stall selection is at Phoenix in particular.
Ask Kyle Larson.
Yeah, they were talking about that at length on Sunday, about how that pit stall location was really key in being able to get out ahead of everyone else. And I mean, it played a huge factor. I mean, I really don't think it would have mattered this Sunday just because of how good Logano's car and Ryan Blaney, for that matter, the 2 Penske cars were compared to everyone else on the long runs. But that definitely gave him a leg up over the rest of his playoff 4 competition.
I will say it felt, or at least maybe not initially, but as the in the middle of the race, it did feel like Christopher Bell was kind of there. And then he had the terrible pit stop where one of his crew pit guys got his finger stuck behind the wall, one of the nuts or something, and they had to pull it out, and it was a whole thing, and it ended up taking, instead of like 8 seconds, it took like 13 seconds or something, and that's just brutal.
Yeah, that was definitely a big disappointment for me. For me, holding all that Christopher Bell money,
Yeah.
but it was one of those things. That was just kind of the story of his season where he couldn't really put together multiple strings of successes. It was these one race like booms that he had, and that's kind of what we saw during the playoffs.
Yep, I did grab some 6-1 on Bell Sunday morning, I think, or maybe Saturday night. And obviously that didn't come to fruition. I was hoping to cash the Ross ticket. Obviously that didn't come to fruition. I should have just bet Logano when I said Logano was the best option, instead of waiting for it to crash down from 4 to like 2.5 and just not be something I'm willing to bet. That being said, speaking of bets, I'm going to share our screen because Brian, we absolutely crushed this race. I was up 12 units and I made a really dumb bet. And you were up 10 units. So we both had a really, really solid championship. So obviously, I guess the controversy, if you want to call it, is the Ross spinning out Chase Elliott. Chase got in front of him. He didn't give him the space to. I mean, it's not like he moved up the track or he went out of his way. He was literally trying to go, and he was fighting for a championship. And I'm not going to blame a guy for like not being like, oh, okay, come on in, Chase. I'll give you all the room you need.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is nice to see from Chastain, who's gotten so much backlash this year for some of the tactics, and obviously some of it is very well deserved, including the stuff with Denny. But for that, I think that he did nothing wrong and absolutely was in the right to take up the space that his car was currently in.
Yeah, it's a situation where you have to take into account what is on the line in this race. I don't really care when it is during the race, but you're literally fighting for every position possible,
Yep.
especially at that track, which you saw it when guys got to the front, they were able to run away. So obviously Chastain didn't want to let his championship 4 competitor in front of him. And because he was there, that should have been Elliott having to move out of his way. And
Yeah,
you
or
know
just
what? He
stay
didn't.
up a little bit and give, and he could, if you get in front of him, then you could take that space, but
Yeah.
you can't just come down and expect him to get out of your way.
Yeah.
I will say Logano, as you mentioned, when he got to space, when he got to clean air, he was awesome. But there was points where he was kind of in the mid pack or the upper third, and he had a little more handling issues. He had some issues in the corners that I thought was interesting. Maybe if he stayed there longer, it would have cost him more. But that being said, Logano over Elliott, obviously cash. Chastain over Elliott, that was a cash. We just got plus numbers on some of the other drivers in the championship, and it was worth taking. Bell over Chase Elliott, Logano over Bell, Ross over Bell. And then Kevin Harvick cashed that top 10 for us. He looked really solid all day. Never felt like he was going to win, but never felt like he was in a bad spot. And Chase Briscoe, shouts to Chase Briscoe. I faded you a lot this year, but my God, you finished the season strong. He's going to be somebody that I think, depending on what the numbers are, I could find myself gravitating towards. He took huge strides this year, really elevated himself as a driver, and I think because of the stuff with Ross Chastain and because of some other drivers kind of elevating into elite levels, even Tyler Reddick to a lesser extent, I think Briscoe got lost in the shuffle a little bit. And I don't think people truly appreciate how special his season was. So to see him really take strides, I'm excited for what 2023 looks like for him, and could definitely be somebody I want to get to. Obviously, Logano wins, so took the 4-1 there. That was a nice little cash. And then Briscoe over Byron, which I believe was our show bet. If I remember correctly.
I don't remember what we did.
Did
I don't know if we did one.
we?
I know we did one the previous race. It was the Hamlin versus
Yeah,
Larson.
I feel like Briscoe versus Byron was, but no. Anyways, and then Larson didn't beat Hamlin. Brad K, of course, got down a couple laps and was out of the conversation. McDowell was there and then not really there and then kind
Yeah,
of not there.
he was fine early on and then just
Yeah,
kind of
but that was more of a we got a 6-1 on him to top 10 and felt like that was a very reasonable outcome. And then Larson over Blaney. Obviously, Blaney has an amazing race that doesn't cash. Once again, just take that that positive. Reddick over Bubba. Reddick was out of the paint. I don't know what happened to him. His end of the season was kind of annoying, and obviously there's a lot of stuff with him changing cars and who knows exactly, but he was definitely like there was a run where he looked like he could win the championship, and then the last month or a month and a half of the season, he didn't seem like the same guy on the vast majority of tracks.
Yeah, I think that was definitely like the changing of the guard for him, just kind of knowing that he was moving on from Richard Childress Racing. I don't think he I don't think he sandbagged the end
No.
of the season, but you could definitely tell that his mind was somewhere else. And then he had that issue where he had to leave the race early because he wasn't feeling well. So I mean, maybe the
Well,
aggressiveness was gone, especially being knocked out of the playoffs. So
yeah. And it was good to see Bowman get back on the track, even if the ending wasn't what he wanted.
he was riding. He was running good. He was like
Yeah, he
running
was
about that
doing really well,
mid-teen area.
and then he had the accident, and then he was kind of out of it. But
Yeah.
um, good, get that confidence back a little bit, and then obviously be ready to attack 2023. And he might be somebody that we get a nice number on, given all his kind of issues and struggles, especially missing races, all that stuff. But it's a Hendrick driver, so who knows how good of a number we'll actually get. Obviously, over here on your card, another nice day for you. Logano wins 4-1. Kevin Harvick top 10. Hamlin over Larson plus money. Logano over Elliott plus money. Chastain over Elliott. That was your big boy stack that cashed pretty easily. So that was a nice hit there. And then Bell over Elliott as well. So really solid finish to the season. We will recap. You did so this is since the All-Star race. We were basically the same. You were just hitting outrights, and
Yep.
that's why you're up 23 units and I'm down 40. But I did climb myself out of the hole a little bit. It was pretty brutal. But I did have a nice, last 3 or 4 races. Had a pretty solid finish to the season. I guess Brian, before we look, we'll look at season long stuff too, but I feel like both of us really learned a lot, betting each and every week and kind of figuring all this stuff out. And I guess, did you have any big takeaways? Did you have anything that you're going to remember as we go into 2023 and things you're going to want to focus on, or just general strategy stuff?
Well, first of all, matchups are very exploitable.
Mhm.
For that's the first big takeaway that I have, and then obviously, going really heavy on the card is never advisable to the extent that we do, just
Yeah.
because I mean you're probably not going to make money when you're betting 4 or 5 top tens every
Yeah.
race. Um, But I mean, that being said, like I do think that there were a lot of times where the bets didn't pay off, but we were on the right side of the thinking. It just
Yeah.
wound up somebody got in a crash or end of race situation where their pit crew effed up. Like, I mean, it's there, and a lot of NASCAR is getting lucky with the guy at the end who doesn't have those issues, and you never know from week to week,
Yeah.
especially with this new car we saw this year.
Mhm.
Anybody has a shot.
Yeah, I definitely process over results. It's really easy to get down on yourself, but when you're betting the guys and they're constantly right there, or there's one little thing at the end, maybe a bad pit stop, maybe something that isn't really in your control, but they're there at the end, they were in place. I remember there was like a month-long stretch where I had like
Yep.
Truex and he finished third, and I forget Larson maybe, and they're all right there, and then they fell out and going, somewhere in stage 3. So
Well,
that's definitely,
how many times were we on Blaney, or especially
yeah,
me? How many
yeah,
times was I on Blaney and he was leading, coming to the end of the race
yeah,
or coming late in the race and he crashed or pit crew totally effed him over? Like
yep,
I, I, it's just one of those things. I mean,
yeah, that's NASCAR betting. It's a lot like PGA too, where it's really fun to bet outrights because they're big numbers, and if you hit, you win a big chunk of change.
yeah,
But there's not a lot of like recapping your winnings each and every week. So building
yeah.
in matchups, building in top 10 bets, even top 5. But even when you get like top 5, top 3, those can get a little dicey. Obviously, if you love an outright and you want to, give yourself a little wiggle room, which is never a bad thing. Top 5s could make sense. Top 3s.
I was just gonna add, like, maybe something else to consider for next season is maybe picking like one of the guys that's more towards the top of the board on an outright, and then going with like one other guy who's kind of
Yeah.
that middling or longer shot, as opposed to going with 3 to 4 guys on an outright, and just sticking with the one guy
Yeah.
for the race, because that's going to save you those arbitrage units at the end of the season, because obviously only one guy is going to win the race, so
Yeah.
you're going to lose 3 units guaranteed if you hit, even if you hit
Yeah.
one of those guys.
I think that's one thing we definitely did better as we went along is, being more, keeping our outright card a little bit shorter, a little more,
Yeah.
2-3 drivers. And obviously, if you want to fire on 10 different drivers, whatever you want to
You
put
better
on
hope you
them,
hit, though.
go for it. But understand that you may go 6, 7, 8 races without hitting an outright, and then you might hit 3 in a row, and then you might not hit for a while. So, if you can handle the ups and downs and having to reload your account every once in a while, well, then that makes sense. But if you're looking to constantly build, I think taking head-to-heads, I think taking top 10s, finding value. We found lots of value with McDowell and Allmendinger and Chris Buescher
I was
and
just
some
gonna
of
say, and Eric Jones on
Eric
numerous
Jones.
occasions where his top 10 number was
Yeah.
far too long,
There's those guys that, depending on the track type, you can find value. If it's a fast track, if it's a Michigan, for example, Eric Jones is an absolute smash there. If you're on road courses, you might find a good number with Tyler Reddick. Like, there's just different areas to kind of take advantage of, especially with guys like Buescher and guys like Eric Jones who don't traditionally finish there. The books just kind of set them similarly, but there's definitely horses for courses, right? So
Yeah.
find your spots, jump on it, and enjoy the ride there. I will bring up our season-long bets, and we can take a look at that. Not a lot of wins. Definitely learned a lot as we went along. I will say it was nice to be holding a, hold. I had a couple Blaney's. He was in the Elite 8, so happy to have that. He was. I mean, if he gets there, then we have some really good shots. Obviously, the 60-1 Ross Chastain was nice. Briscoe almost got there. Had him at 30. Obviously, we both hit that 150-1 before the Martinsville race, or what, it was Martinsville, right?
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, I mean, I had Bell, and I had we had names to jump on, and at good numbers too. So I was happy with how the championship card came together. Obviously didn't hit a winner, but that's okay. And as I mentioned, Christopher Bell's season long win total was at 0.5 when the season started. Really wish we had gotten heavier on that, because looking back, obviously.
Yep. Well, and that's something else I was just thinking as we were just chatting previously to looking over the season long bets, is next year too, we're going to have to try to monitor early in the season who is that one guy that the sports books have yet to adjust to. And I almost feel like with Jimmy Johnson joining the Petty GMS team, that could be Eric Jones could take that next step, where early on in the year, we're still getting the 2 to 3 to 1 to top 10. And by midway through the season, he's more competitive just by having Jimmy Johnson in his ear and giving him, advice and stuff like that. It'll be interesting to see how they develop that. But I think Eric Jones early on could be somebody to attack.
I like that call. And then obviously hitting out Austin Cindric over 0.5 wins.
Oh, the first
the
race
first
of the
race
year,
of the
yeah.
year. That was great. So that was nice. Team Penske getting over 4.5 wins. That was
much to do with Joey Logano winning the championship race. I mean,
yeah. So But yeah, I think looking at these and getting on them a little earlier so we can avoid some of the heavy juice that we had to pay with, especially when it comes to the over unders and maybe the driver matchup wins for the season. So
Yeah.
I think there is exploitable areas there. Obviously, we're not betting $10,000 or $100,000 per bet, so they may limit some of that stuff. But I think there's ways to get enough money down
Yeah.
for what
And
we
this
want
was
to do.
with this being the only the second like full season, well, this was actually the first full season
Yeah.
that we did NASCAR bets. So it was the first year that we jumped on season long props.
Yep.
Next year, obviously, we'll be quicker to the board as soon as they're released. We'll be monitoring for when that stuff's dropped and try to find the numbers that we really like going into the season.
Yep. So make sure you are subscribed and turn on bell notifications. We will be posting stuff throughout the off season. As soon as numbers post, we'll obviously jump on, get you some thoughts there. We are going to try and have some guests on throughout the off season. Some of the names throughout the NASCAR Twitter and gambling communities. And it would be really fun to kind of just get people's thoughts on as we head into next year.
Yep.
But wait for numbers to drop for that, but make sure you are subscribed if you have not done that yet. We'd really like to get to a 1,000 subs by the end of next NASCAR season. So if you can help us get there, we would really, really appreciate it. We'll flip over and look at Brian. Brian did a little bit better than I did. Obviously, kept the winning championship card a lot more tidy, but he had Chastain, he had Bell, obviously had Blaney, who was right there, and then William Byron. I think we talked about him so much. His ups and downs were all over, but his highs are high, and he has the ability to be in the Final Four next year. So I think those were all really good bets. Obviously, you had the Cindric, you had the Bell. You took Byron over Kyle Busch, which was definitely the move. And then Christopher Bell over Tyler Reddick. That ended up being a push. Both drivers took huge steps. Penske over 4.5, and then JGR over 8.5 was not a winner. So I went 3 and 10. You went 4 and 5. Obviously, not huge profits for either of us, but fun bets. And if we hit one of these championship odds, even if it's not the 60 to 1, we're rolling in it. So
and then obviously too next year, we're gonna have to try to monitor the season long numbers throughout the year a little bit more actively. Yeah. And then, for instance, when we're coming down to the last race, and I add Chase Briscoe at 150 to 1, I'll add that to the sheet at a tenth of a unit, or quarter unit play for those kind of odds.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good call. And especially because we talked about it too, like after Cindric won that race, we're like, his number is now 1.5. We should just bet the under. And sure enough, that would have come to fruition.
Yep.
But there was a couple spots that I did like him. So, but that's kind of a cool way to do it, right? You go, okay, I'm going to take the under. And then if you find spots to jump on it, then you could jump on it. You hit a big number, then you're happy. And if he doesn't win those races, then you're still, going to cash that season long bet. So it's a nice way to guarantee yourself a little bit of profit at season's end. So that was all of our season long bets and all of our other bets. It was a really fun season. I think we've really improved, like I said, as the season went along, and we figured stuff out. I'm really excited already for 2023 and diving into that. I think there's going to be a lot of fun stuff, including hopefully a few more trips to the track, Brian Twining.
Yeah, hopefully Vegas for both of those races. That's kind of goal, and then obviously maybe there's a chance that we could get to the championship race.
Yeah, I think Phoenix is very doable. I think maybe one of the California races. I think I love like Martinsville, Darlington, maybe Bristol, like all those. Well, yeah, Talladega, that'd be incredible too.
Like the party central for NASCAR.
Yeah. So we'll try and at least get Vegas in, and potentially other ones. So if you are going to be going to the tracks, let us know. We'd love to come say hello, and maybe we can find a way to make it work. I think that will do it for our season long wrap up. Do you have any other thoughts or anything else before we get out of here, Brian?
I will say that going into next year, the slate will be clean. Brad K and Joey Logano will not be my arch nemesis.
Oh,
It's going to be a
that's not true. They will be your arch nemesis for life.
new season. No hard feelings.
Mm.
I will say I'm gonna say it now. Like I will have Ryan Blaney and William Byron and Christopher Bell on season long outrights next season.
Yeah, it sure feels that way. I think we're gonna get some fun numbers. So hopefully, we'll see when numbers get posted. I'm guessing probably before February, so maybe January we'll be able to record something and get it out. But
Well,
we
definitely
will
because I think the what the hell they call it
the Clash.
Yeah, the Clash is in January sometime.
Yeah.
So
I remember last year they definitely came out before we did our Daytona preview. So
yeah.
but yeah, thanks to everybody who joined us for the ride. Hopefully you guys made some money. Hopefully you had some fun. Brian and I are still doing football picks. You can come check out our quick six each and every week. We'll be there through the Super Bowl. But yeah, we're excited. We're ready to jump back in. Like I said, we're gonna hopefully have some guests talk some NASCAR throughout the off season. So make sure you are subscribed so you know when those videos go live, and let us know down in the comments your thoughts, shows you'd like to see, anything like that. I think we're going to work on obviously faces in new places with people moving. There's a lot of movement going on. So try and get some thoughts out, try and get some feelings out on that. That's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. We'll talk to you next time.